With miles upon miles of snow, dirt, and emptiness, the Arctic, Antarctic, and other places of cold are truly lonely places. However, beyond that loneliness is mystery, tragedy, and speculation. Welcome to the 10-episode series where I will be covering the most bizarre instances and mysteries that have ever haunted these places. I am your host, Kryptic, and for today, we will be covering the horrific events that have occurred in Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Prepare to be frozen in time. In the dead of December, one area in South Dakota is the site of multiple tragic events. The blood and corpses of hundreds cover the land as the weather idles by. How did this situation happen? And what were the events that caused this loss of life? Well, these turn of events started around the later months of 1890. A famous native named Wovoka sparked a new type of dance after he recovered from a near-fatal disease. He made the ghost dance very popular among many tribes in North America. Wovoka believed that if everyone participated in a ghost dance, the settlers that took over the lands would vanish, and the dead would return from the grave, and everyone would be united with their ancestors in the lands they once controlled. After the number of ghost dances started to rise, the government tried to stop the indigenous peoples by shortening their freedoms and weakening their food supply, which in turn caused many natives to die from malnutrition. When they persisted onwards, however, the citizens of the nearby towns were scared that the ghost dance were going to be the beginning of a revolution. Daniel F. Royer was designated as an agent and was in charge of observing the people at Pine Ridge and making sure they were kept in line. And on October 22, 1890, Royer asked for several hundred soldiers after he started losing control to all the ghost dances. President Benjamin Harrison authorized this as the 7th Cavalry made its assault on Wounded Knee. On December 10, 1890, in the northern part of the state, Chief Sitting Bull and several tribesmen were killed along with multiple officers at the Standing Rock Reservation. Interesting to note, Sitting Bull was actually in command of the Aboriginals at the Battle of Little Bighorn, which led the Indians to crushing General Custer and the 7th Cavalry in Montana. So some people could see this as a revenge of sorts. On December 29, 1890, a force of about 500 cavalrymen entered Pine Ridge demanding that the Lakota give up their weapons and stop the ghost dance ritual once and for all. Chief Spotted Elk was in charge of the Lakota at Pine Ridge and was very accepting to the cavalry as he and his men gave their weapons to the battalion. However, a misunderstanding started that caused a large stain in American history. A Lakota by the name of Black Coyote was asked to hand his weapon over to the cavalrymen. Coyote refused, saying that he had already bought his gun for a lot of money, even though some accounts detail that he was also deaf, which didn't help the situation. Nevertheless, the men insisted and tried taking it from him by force. This turn of events started something tragic that would become a permanent stain in the history of the United States. Black Coyote's gun went off, causing a domino effect of false hostility and tension. All hell broke loose after the shot was fired, and both sides went to war on each other. The battle was close at first, but later into the battle, the US Army gained the advantage. While the Lakota were trying to move back and regain their weapons, the Army brought an artillery of Hotchkiss guns that were very effective when dealing with mass proportions of enemies. These changed the tone of the battle as the nearly even dispute turned into a one-sided massacre. The men, women, and children of the site attempted to hide in a ravine and avoid the immense artillery, but it did not stop the American forces from gunning the Lakota down. In the concluding silence, the soldiers were victorious, and the Aboriginals were forced to submit. The Army had lost 25 men during the weekly onslaught, while the Lakota lost hundreds of men, women, and children. The death toll varies as sources go as low as 100 people, while some go as high as 300. Once the fighting had ended, the surviving Lakota fled, and a heavy blizzard went over the battlefield. The Army simply left, leaving a field of corpses to freeze away for the time being. A couple of days later, hired civilians, volunteers, and soldiers returned to the site to bury the dead. A mass grave was made as dozens upon dozens of Lakota tribespeople were buried. The site was a somber display as the bodies show the brutality and the unnecessary violence of the situation. A field of death was what remained for those days, as the bodies were frozen in place, presenting their final moments of life vividly to the onlookers who were supposed to move their bodies. This event changed the shift in power of the Indian Wars. Many people consider this the final blow in those same wars. 20 men had won the Medal of Honor for what had transpired. This caused a lot of controversy amongst many, as they believe these people do not deserve a medal for such a one-sided affair. Multiple petitions have been made to rescind these individuals from the list of the Medal of Honor. You would think that a place could not get any worse, that Wounded Knee would finally have some peace and no more blood would be spilt there. Unfortunate to say, Pine Ridge was the site of more loss of life. In 1973, 82 years after the massacre, representatives of the American Indian movement held an armed riot and hostage takeover to impeach Dick Wilson, the newly elected chief of the Oglala Sioux. Wilson responded by sending the army to Pine Ridge to stop the occupation. After 71 days, AIM lost control of Wounded Knee, and 2 Lakota lost their lives in the duration of the incident. The 2 main instigators of the riot, Dennis Banks and Russell Means, managed to be acquitted of the incident due to FBI manipulation in the trial. 2 years later, in 1975, a native activist by the name of Leonard Peltier killed 2 FBI agents, Jack R. Kohler and Robert A. Williams, at Pine Ridge. Leonard was sentenced to life in prison and has the chance to be paroled in 2024. Just 6 months later, on December 12, 1975, the murder of AIM activist Ann May Aquash occurred at Wounded Knee. This murder was very controversial, as the government was not involved in her murder. and it is still not clear what truly happened on that day. All that is known is that she died from exposure after being shot in the head and left to die, and someone involved in AIM secretly ordered that she be killed. All of these events are a grim reminder of the abuse of the North American indigenous peoples and what they had to deal with all across America. Hopefully, this place will finally have some peace.